Again, what we're here to, that is the application, which is launching Monday, April 30th. And so we're here to talk to you a little bit about that, me being Rachel Burnett, your Deputy Commissioner, and
I'm Craig Zemke, the data guy.
The data guy. And so I'm just going to talk generally about the process and the launch. Craig's going to spend some time talking to you about the steps that need to be taken there at delegates in order to get you ready for this process. And so we're going to go ahead and walk through a PowerPoint with you, covering some information, and then I'm going to turn it over to Craig because he's got some things that he wants to show you on how to do some of the detail work that you'll need to do on your end. So we're going to now move from the camera and move on to the PowerPoint. So again, this is today, and what we're going to do first is talk to you about one of the next steps that we're going to do, which we have sent out information. And so on May 10th, 2018, we're going to have our next Executive Director, Program Director meeting. The information is here for you. It's going to be at Truman College, which is located 1145 West Wilson. So you can see that. And I wanted to make sure that everybody understood the time because some people were envisioning an earlier start and others were thinking it was going to be all day. And I just wanted to clarify that. It will be from 9:30 to 2:30 on that date. So again, we want to have you there. We're going to talk a little bit more about what we're talking about today, but because the launch is happening Monday, we knew we needed to get some information to you, and that's why we're here with you. And so at the EDPD meeting, we've got some more information about application, slot allocation discussions, and then there'll be an update about the Chicago Early Learning. And so again, at the EDPD meeting, here's your information on the next time we'll be together, which is May 10th. So today's agenda, I just want to walk over a couple of things. I want to talk about DFSS vision for the application and recruitment, which that's what the tool is set up for. And then the application timetable, turning it over, Craig again, he's going to walk through returning children, the slot matrix, and establishing your system. So there's some work to do. And the other thing we want to do is talk a little bit about how we're going to continue to communicate with you through this process, which is through webinars and drop-in clinics. At the end, we'll give you a few minutes for questions and answers. And so here we are. Today is the last day of the week, but on Monday, this application is going to launch, and we're excited about this going out there. But we want to make sure that you understand when it launches on Monday, April 30th, it will be parent-facing, meaning it will open for parents who will be able to go ahead and put their information in there. And so we here at DFSS and CPS as well, we're really excited about this opportunity for parents to be able to go into this system and start getting ready, prepping, thinking about what it is they want to do with and for their children in the fall of 2018. Wanting everybody out there to understand this is citywide. It includes all of our delegates and our CPS schools as well, understanding that this is a great opportunity for you and a great opportunity for parents. It is the online application that we're talking about. What we are going to be able to do starting on Monday the 30th is parents will be able to go in and start applying, meaning choosing where they think they want to have their child enrolled, those 3 to 5-year-olds. And again, this is just 3 to 4-year-olds, excuse me, for next program year. And again, I want to be real clear, this is for next program year that we're talking about. But parents will be able to start accessing it as of Monday, April 30th. What they will be doing is putting in information about what it is they're interested in. What we're doing right now is making sure we're cleaning up data and that your sites are appearing as they should, so that parents will be able to select your sites as they're going through. We're trying to make sure all of the information is correct on both sides of this, so that parents can actively go in and do their part of this work. Once that information goes in, it's not going to be open for offers or enrollment. This is getting parents into the system. The reason that we've moved up, for example, our EDPD meeting to May 10th is because we wanted to be able to go over a lot more detailed information for you. We want to make sure that you're ready once the applications that parents put in actually move over, so that you will be able to see them and enroll. And so there's a lot of information. We know that this application entails parents going and different places, and so we're going to talk a lot about that and some of that as we go through this today. But again, this is for you to understand. It's going live for parents. We're excited because parents have been waiting, wanting to know, when do I begin to start looking at places to enroll my preschool children. So we're here and we're ready, and we're getting you ready today with some of the first steps. So the enrollment process, want to make sure that you understand that parents will be able to go in and search for locations. They'll be able to say, I've got my child is 3-4 years old, I want to apply. They'll get into the system, and they'll be able to go in and find your delegate sites. They'll be able to see CPS schools. They'll be able to select two, just like they were able to do last year. But what won't happen, I just want to say that, and I'm going to continue to say that, those applications won't port over to you at this point in the process. That's not going to happen until May 18th. So we've got some time to continue to work with you on your side of the house. But we want to make sure that you understand parents are going to start applying. And what does that mean? We know the moment that it launches out in community, parents will start following through and wanting to start talking to people. So please make sure your sites know that the application is going live on Monday. And just in case parents walk in and say, I saw this, I heard this, make sure that they are able to answer some of the questions. Some of the pieces that's embedded in this PowerPoint will help you as you are answering questions at your sites. And so you'll be able to download this PowerPoint so that you have access to it for yourself. But again, they'll be applying. It'll be for CPS site offers. They'll verify placement through the Family Resource Center, which we're going to give you information on those, but also the community-based sites. We know that you verify your placement through the community program location where the parents have decided they want to go. And so we want you to understand, yes, there's two ways that this is happening, but specific to you, parents are going to come directly into your sites and sit with you to verify their placement and everything else that's needed from income and so forth. So please understand, this is the first phase of this process, which is the application that's opening on April 30th. So your parents who are going to be going to this site on Monday will have options to enroll looking at CPS program locations. And yes, they will also see community-based locations as well. So parents will have those choices as they walk through this. Your sites are there, they're listed. Some of you have been contacted because we've been trying to clean up addresses and making sure that the descriptors are correct, things that you want stated about your sites. And so we've gathered that data, we're uploading and getting everything ready on our side. So when parents see it, they see your data as well, and that for your site, right information, what services are provided there. But back to the other point, remember, this is for children age 3 to 4. That application launches, and it is still for preschool students. And so, again, there's a lot of information out there. We're giving you some of that today. So some of the things that parents are going to be told to do, as well as this is what they need to be thinking about, is they need to go ahead and start gathering their documents. So the system is going to talk to them about making sure that they have the pieces of documents that they need to show proof of the child's age, their home address, and proof of income. These are documents that you would be requesting when they come to your site. So parents are getting advance notice about all of that. And then they're being told, if they're coming to a community-based organization, to bring those documents directly with them when they come in to see you. And on the other side, if they're going to a CPS-based program, they will be taking them to a Family Resource Center. But again, we're just wanting to be sure that you understand, we're letting parents know that they need to start gathering their documents, which will help them through the process and their thinking about where they're going and what all they need to do. And so what we're asking them to also do, which is really important to all of us, and that's why all of us need to be really, really into this and making sure that all parents are looking forward to this, because what we want to do is say consistently what step 3 says right there is bring your child on the first day of the program. First day of program, September 4th, 2018. We want this process to have worked well for everyone, parents and agencies and schools, and that the children are in, parents know that their children are enrolled, all of their site information has worked, all the verification that you need to do is done, so that we can do exactly what it says, and that's let learning begin. So what we're saying to parents again is apply. We want them to go ahead and start that application at chicagoearlylearning.org. We need them to get out there. We need them to get their information into the system. Again, that's the only piece of it that's opening on the 30th is for parents. The next phase of that, as you know, would be to verify in person. So yes, they will need to come to you. And then the enrollment process is following all of the different detailed pieces that you're doing on your site to make sure that you've been able to move your families from application to enrollment. Again, not at this particular time. There's some work that needs to be done. Craig's going to go over some of that for you. But what it says to parents, for example, is this, you know, when children participate in high quality learning, that their experiences, it gets them better prepared for success in kindergarten, because we know that's exactly what we're doing, is planning for success for children, kindergarten and beyond. This is what it's all about. So I'm going to pause with the PowerPoint for just a second, because I want everybody to understand that this really is a recruitment tool for you. We want you to understand parents are out there. We're trying to get as many vocal points we can and touch points for parents to make sure we're getting them into the system so that they will be able to apply. We want to make sure that you are doing the same thing on your side. If you are doing different sitting at tables for fairs, whatever you're doing, we want to make sure that you're saying to parents also that they need to be applying, getting into this application system. So we all need to be on the same page. This is a recruitment tool citywide to make sure we get parents who are able, ready, can find a place, sit down, say, I want my preschool child in a program. Here's my access point, getting them into this application. So everybody, all of us working together to make this work. First step, April 30th, it's going to launch. So the website is here for you. Again, we're going to make sure you get this PowerPoint so that you will have it for yourself. But what we're saying to you again is the first step, April 30th, parent facing, they will be able to go in and apply. The second step, what Craig's going to talk to you about, are the things that you need to do in COPA to make sure that you're able to receive applications once they begin to come over to the recruitment side, for you to start moving those applications from an application to offer to enrollment. And so there's some steps that have to be followed at your house, and I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to understand some of that. Craig's going to start off. There's going to be some follow-up trainings and other things, but I'm going to turn it over to him right now.
Okay. Make it so they can see me again for a second. Okay. Hey, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. I'm glad so many of you were able to make it. I think if we stay on top of this from the beginning, this will be a happier, a more friendly and easier going process than it was last year. So the first thing I want to say to everybody about this is don't panic. I know we just came out and said we're opening an online application for preschool on Monday the 30th. That's not actually true. We opened an online application for preschool a year ago, and it has been up and running for the entire year. What we're doing this weekend is we are ending the ability to apply online for the 2017-2018 program year so that we can take applications for the 2018-2019 program year, which starts in September. So beginning this weekend, parents will no longer be able to go onto the portal and apply for the current program year. That does not mean you can't still take parents into your program. Actually, some people may apply for the wrong year and come in and tell you that. You'll be able to work with them and get them in if you're a year-round program. But what we're doing is we are launching what we call the early bird period. So between Monday the 30th and Friday, May 18th, we will have parents able to log into the system and fill out an application. They'll be able to search for the programs that they want and apply. During that time, we won't be making any offers to parents. We'll have everybody on the waiting list. And then when the 18th comes around, we will make offers based on the eligibility criteria that you guys set up, and we'll be talking about how to do that with you guys over the next 3 weeks. But they will be taken in order of eligibility, so there is not any benefit during this period for being the first person in necessarily, but we're going to have parents able to apply, and again, we'll take the homeless families, the most needy families first, and then take them in order of eligibility. So that's the plan going forward. These are the key things that you need to understand right now. The applications that people are going to be submitting starting Monday are for next year, for the 2018-2019 program year. They'll be applying, parents will be able to apply to CPS and CBOs at the same time using the same application. But these are, again, for 3 and 4-year-olds only, and for preschool-aged children, so we will not be including the birth to 3 population on the application this year. Even though we may eventually do that with the same interface, that's actually the process of having an entirely separate application. So for right now, it's just the 3 to 4-year-olds. It's just center-based at this point. I'm not looking at the questions yet. I know some of you are going to have, someone probably has posted the question already. What about family child care homes? We didn't do that by default and include them on the application because we actually still have centers as recently as the last few weeks that have said, I didn't know there was an online application. Who are these people who are showing up? So we didn't want people showing up at the doorstep of somebody without them understanding what's going on. However, those programs out there who have family child care homes, if you would like to include them on the application, let us know and we can work with you. There's really 3 of you who will call me about this, and your names are Michelle and Daryl and Leon, and I look forward to talking to you. And again, for family child care homes as well, this is only for the 3 to 5-year-old population. That's why I know who's going to ask, because we only have certain homes serving that population. Okay, so as I said, the applications will be in this early bird phase until May 18th, at which point you'll get information, assuming that the slot matrix and so on is set up correctly. You'll get information about the most eligible families who have applied, and you can move forward from that. So the second thing I want you to know is that we're just giving you a brief overview today. This is not all the training that you're going to receive. First of all, I'm not sure that it's gone out yet, but I saw it in the system already. Next Wednesday, we're going to have another webinar that will be in more detail about the process of setting up your house in COPA to make sure that you're able to get the applications that you want to receive. And we are going to follow on from that with what we're calling drop-in clinics. I've got the morning and afternoon sessions on the 3rd and the 8th are already scheduled. We will be setting up additional ones as needed. That means that you can come in with questions about how to set up your slot matrix where you want slots in terms of the type of eligibility based on the programs you're funding for and so on. And we will walk you through that because we're setting up clinics so you can come in and do that because we can't answer questions when people call and say, how should I set up my matrix? There's a conversation that we have to have with you. It's not a very long conversation, but we do need to find out what kind of kids you're looking for in order to do that. So I'd like to take you now. I've set up a fake site. If I can get the mouse here. I set up what we have the beta site. Here, I'm just going to go over here. Hi. So what you're looking at is a beta site. This is not what COPA looks like today exactly, but it should be what it looks like on Monday because we're updating the site with the launch of the application. So there are a couple steps that you need to go through in order to be ready to take children in the application. The first one I want to talk about today, because the first step you have to take chronologically, is deciding who's going to be a returning child. So the children who are enrolled in your program today and who will be returning in the fall do not need to reapply, obviously. However, they are taking up space. They're still going to take up seats in the program, and that means that there will be fewer available. So before you decide how to lay out your eligibility matrix for next year, you need to decide who's returning. So there's a really easy way to do this, but you have to be an admin user in COPA. I'm going to show you that. Here I'm going to admin. This should look familiar to some of you. On the administrative side, there is a section entitled School Year End and Rollover. And the first step in the rollover process is Child Next Year preparation. So when you go into COPA and go to the Child Next Year preparation, it's going to show you all of the children who are enrolled in your program currently, who you haven't decided what's going to happen to them next year. And so the first step, it's not a complicated step, but it's very important, is to decide who's going to be returning and who is going to transition out of the program. So here I've got my enrolled children list. And you notice COPA has automatically decided that some kids are returning and some are not. And it's doing this based on how old they are. It's not necessarily correct. It just thinks that older children will be transitioning and younger children will be returning. So if you know for a fact that Yogi Bear is still age eligible, but he's not coming back, you would set him to archive. So we've got 3 options here. The returning flag means they're going to come back to the program that they're in now. Recertify means that they're going to come back, but you need to redetermine eligibility. So this will put them on the waiting list. Usually that means that they're moving from one program to another. So if you have a child who's in the Prevention Initiative program this year and you're going to come back into your preschool program next year, you don't want to archive them, they're coming back, but they're not returning to the same program, so you're going to mark recertify for that child. So you just decide who's coming back and who's not, and you hit submit. And it's going to ask you if you want to set the returning flag, and you do. So you're going to put yes, I set the returning flag, and nothing has happened. And I made a mistake, but you're going to do that the first time you do this. In order to process someone, you have to select them. It won't automatically do everybody, even if you put this in. Let me try again. There we go. Now they're gone. And now if I look over here, your class assignment, I can see the ones that I marked as returning. Are they returning next year? It says yes.
Success.
That's awesome. So the reason we did this, and this is the only thing you really need to do before next week, like you just saw, it only takes a few minutes. It's not a huge process, but it's easier to start with the slot matrix if you've already done that. So just go ahead and do this today or Monday or Tuesday. Mark your returning kids as returning. Because when you want to set up your slot matrix for next year, and that's what I call it, in COPA, it's actually called Site Slots Allocation by Eligibility Points, and you can see why we never say that out loud, because it's annoying. But that's actually what it's called. So we call that the slot matrix. I'm going to look at my site here. The system is still defaulting the current year, but what we're looking at is next year. Turn this on. Okay. Not more. Okay. So as I said, this is the beta site. It is. I have access. So I can't show you the rest of this today, but that's okay. Because as I just told you, what I want you to do is mark your kids as returning for next year. You are only going to be able to do this. That's the reason for the error. You're only going to be able to do this for those sites that have been identified as being on the Chicago Early Learning site and the Universal Application. Come and see you guys again. So we've actually been talking about that for several days, and we've been updating who's on the application and who isn't. And we think we have it right. But you should look and let us know if something that you think should be appearing on that website is not. You can do that by going to chicagoearlylearning.org and performing a search. You can either search by the name of your site or put in an address nearby and search for everything in the community area or zip code. It's actually a really neat site that way. And if somebody should be on there but is not, let us know. Again, we're only putting 3 to 5-year-old agencies on there right now. So any site that isn't included on the application, you're not going to be able to go forward and include slot information or otherwise. And families are not going to be able to apply to them. So make certain that, again, the information is correct. We've been trying to go back and forth with everyone for months and think we have it, but we may not. So again, let us know that. And then set up your returning children. We should be good for next week. Please make sure there are 2 things coming up that are essential. Make sure that someone not only participates in the webinar next Wednesday, but make sure it's someone who does have administrative access to COPA, because we are going to be going into the back end and going through the process of identifying the eligibility criteria. We want to make sure that everyone can follow along and do that in their own system. And we don't want somebody to have to then go train somebody else. So make sure someone participates. The second thing is that everyone should be present or have a representative on May 10th at the EDP meeting. It is extremely essential, and you will be left behind if you're not there. So
sounds like be there or be square.
Exactly. Exactly.
So let's see what kind of questions we have over there. I'm sure
definitely we have some now. I think. Okay. When will we be able to get the PowerPoint?
We'll get it out to you once we're done here. We'll make sure that it gets sent out. There was also a memo that had gone out. I've asked that we also get that so that we can get it back out to you, because it gives the dates that Craig mentioned earlier about the drop-in clinics and the webinar. So we're going to get all of that out to you.
Okay. Can we get the FY19 free and reduced meals income guideline? I thought I saw it on COPA, but I'm not sure.
We'll look for that and make sure that we can send that out to you as well.
What about the option under the child status? Good question. This is from Damon Garabay. Returning and enroll, but waiting to transition. The reason that I showed you that, what I just showed you in the back end, and I'd like you to use that child next year returning option, is that there's a returning flag that's already being used for this program year. It's determining your slot matrix for 17-18, and there's a returning flag that's being set up for 18-19. So there are actually 2. I'm not sure. Okay, is the cord long enough for me to get this there? Let me just, it is. Okay, let me find a child. Okay. So what we're asking about here, there are multiple returning flags now because we've got 2 program years we're dealing with. So you can set it by hand. This, however, previously served in returning, which we've been using all year, marks them as a returning child for 17-18. And they're taking up a spot in your slot matrix for this current year. This is a new one. I'm not even sure this is live in COPA yet, but it will be as of Sunday night. Is marked returning next year, and that's what is automatically marked when you go through the process. And this marks them as taking up a returning slot for for 18-19. So because we have 2 program years going on now, it's easy to make that mistake and think that you've marked them as returning, and you haven't marked them as returning. So that's why I want to go through that process, because when you see that column that says returning next year and it says yes, that's when you know that they're going to count. So you can use it, but it's best practice to go through the admin site. That way you know you've seen everybody and you haven't missed anyone too. And how soon do we need to do this step? In the next week. It's not, as we said, offers aren't going out for a couple weeks, but you can't do the next step, the step that we're going to talk about on Wednesday, unless you've decided how many children are returning. And the reason for that is that if you've got space for 60 kids at your site, you're not giving out 60 spots. You're giving out only spots that are going to be vacant. So if you've got 20 kids returning, then that's only 40 that you have to play with. And you've got to figure out the total number before you start handing them out.
And to that point, Craig, that's why we're saying this is a recruitment tool for you. This is the time for you to start thinking about your next year program. When you think about how many children you're serving right now, this 3-year-old, for example, is going to be with you next year as your 4-year-old, you need to be thinking about that number. So you will go in and do what Craig is asking you to do, is acknowledge that they're your returning children. That helps you figure out exactly what your recruitment strategies need to be, because you know how many children that you're then talking about you need to go out, recruit, and enroll. This system is set up for parents to start acknowledging that they want to enroll at your site, but you've got to think about how many vacancies you will have for next program year. And we really need you to start thinking about that, because what we also don't want to have are parents applying for slots that are not actually available at your sites. And so we really need you to go in and think about next year, doing exactly what Craig is defining for you so they can see that.
Maybe we should be. Yeah. Okay. How do programs sign up for the next training on this? We're going to send out a link to the webinar on Wednesday. So I'm not sure that we need.
We'll send out the link to the webinar just like we've done. At this point, we're not going to set up any additional registration system for the webinar, because we want as many people to be on there as possible. We're not trying to limit access to that. But we will need, for the drop-in clinics, for people to get that information out there. And like Craig said, make sure the right people are coming to the right place. It's really important that we think of it that way. And Wednesday, when you're on the webinar, if there's more information that we need to give out about drop-in clinics, Craig will be prepared to do that at that time.
We'll figure out how to sign you up for that. We have somewhat limited space, so we'll be able to be dealing with several agencies at one time. Okay. Will there be recording of this posted? We are recording this right now, so it will be posted. I would say Victor usually does that, and he's not here today. So not today, but most likely on Monday, it will show up on our regular channel. Can you make the screen larger? No. There's a way to do that, but I don't know what it is right now. Yeah,
it's not working for us right now, so we apologize for that.
What is May 10th? Can you repeat that? So May 10th is the executive director and program director meeting for all of you.
Okay. And at that meeting, we're going to talk more about the application, and there will also be more information about Chicago Learning updates. We need everybody to be there because this implies everyone, and this is not, let me say that as well, this is not just for Head Start. I know we were doing our EDPD meeting. We had a specific one because we were working on the review. This next EDPD meeting is for all. It is for Head Start and PFA and PI. So we need all of you there. We will be at Truman College, as the slide said before, and we will definitely make sure reminder information gets out to you about the EDPD. We will want people to let us know who's coming, though, and we will ask for you to register for the EDPD meeting, because we are, again, even though we're at Truman College, we're going to have some limitations on space, and we also have refreshments that we're going to have there for you in the morning, so there will be registration for that.
All right. Can you say more about the webinar on Wednesday? What will that be about, and who should attend? So there are several steps that have to happen in order for the application to work out correctly for you. So the first one is just what I went through, that you need to decide who's returning. Next Wednesday, I'm going to walk through the next step with everybody, which is how to allocate your remaining slots, meaning your slots for new children, to decide how many should be reserved for the poorest children, how many need to meet Head Start guidelines, and how many that you are going to open up to a wider audience so that you can take preschool for all or private pay slots. And it's important for people to attend that, because many of the complaints that people had about the application last year stemmed from the fact that it wasn't obvious how to set that out to get the children that you wanted, with the result that many sites didn't get the applications they wanted to receive because too many of their children were being determined by the site not to be eligible for the program. Right. So it should be someone that has admin access to COPA, because that's required in order to set up the slots. Someone should also be participating who understands the funding that you have. So you also need to know how many preschool for all slots do I have, how many private pay slots do I have, and how many of those children are returning, so that you can figure out from that how many you're trying to recruit. This is very closely tied to your recruitment plan and your selection criteria that you have internally. So you have, or you should have, some idea who you're looking to recruit in the fall for the next program year. If you don't, you need to sit down and have that conversation before you come on here on Wednesday, because if you have 4-year-olds enrolled right now, and I think you do, they're going to kindergarten next year, and you're going to need to replace them. And so that's a conversation that if you're not having right now, you need to be having right now. So we talked about looking at this in terms of how many children are returning, but the easiest way to do that right now, because you don't really know that, is to flip it on its head. How many children do you know are transitioning to kindergarten, and how do you plan to replace them? That's really the question. And when you can answer that, then you're ready to set up your slot matrix. If you don't know that yet, then you can't do it.
Right. So to what Craig just went over, a couple of key points. Someone with admin access needs to be there so they can open up that screen. Their password will allow them to do that, and then they will have some information or knowledge about how to use that side of COPA. Has to understand what your funding streams are so that they can think about, again, how you're setting up that slot matrix, and thinking about, again, doing the step 1 that he just went over with you today, and that is your returning. So right now, what we're asking you to do, start thinking about next year. This is your recruitment strategy. Like he's saying, it links directly to that. When we're thinking program year 18-19, which we need to be doing right now, that's what we're asking you to do, is how many children are transitioning out of your program that are going to move on to kindergarten. Those are now going to be seats that you need to now recruit for and enroll. The system is going to help you do that. Then also we want you to think about if you had any current vacancies that were in that age group as well, then you want to make sure that you thought through how you're going to make sure that you get to that full enrollment across all of your funding streams. So it's some time that you got to start thinking about that. That's why we wanted to come to you today and start you thinking on your strategies, your recruitment strategies, linking this back to your work, making sure that you have the right person with admin access even. Because if there's something that needs to be done at your site, this is the time for you to get in touch with Craig to make sure that you're able to do all of what it is that we're talking about. Because we don't want you not to be able to access this, and we need you to get your matrix set up. So what we're asking you to do is some thinking and then some work. So we're going to continue to work through this process with you from webinars and trainings, but what we're going over today really is key in this process.
Okay. Next, what's the difference between a community-based program and a CPS-based program? So everybody who is not Chicago Public Schools is a community-based program. That's kind of our internal lingo. Basically, this application is the only way for parents right now to apply to school-based preschool. So if they want to go to their neighborhood school, they need to go through the Chicago Early Learning application, because no one will be present at the school during the summer for them to apply to. It's also open to all of your other sites, and that includes everybody from charter schools who don't use a lottery to your neighborhood daycare to some of our larger Head Start delegate agencies. So we're trying to bring everybody together under one roof here, so that parents who are looking for services can see what all of their options are and what programs in their area might serve their needs. What if one of your sites is not coming up on Chicago Early Learning? Then I would say send me an email and I'll figure it out. So some sites that we are serving children now are not on the Chicago Early Learning website of the application. And the reason for that is probably that we believe that there will not be 3 to 5 year olds served there next program year. If we're wrong about that, we'll add them. Like I said, we've been going back and forth on a number of, what is it now, 277 community sites, something like that.
Yeah. So, Appletina, that's your question. And so again, to Craig's point, if there's something, if you've looked on the site and you found something missing, please communicate with them.
And we can add them. The process for adding them back in is easy, but you should know that the site is updated overnight every night. So when we change our designation of who's on the application, it won't show up until sometime after midnight. What is the purpose of the early 3 PIR age selection under the birth date? When do we need to check it? So the good news is the early 3 doesn't have much to do with the online application, because what that means is it's a child that has turned 3 during the program year who is enrolling at basically in a Head Start program, or a child care only program, because you don't, to participate in the Head Start, you don't have to have been 3 on September 1st, but you do have to be 3 when you enroll. So when someone is applying during the program year who has turned 3 recently, that's when the box is checked. For the purpose of the online application, though, early 3 children will not be able to apply. So if you have a child who is going to turn 3 on September 10th, which is after the September 4th beginning of the program year, and after the September 1st date, they will not be able to apply online because the system will consider them a 2-year-old. So when they turn 3, at that point, they will be able to come in and apply, but they can't apply ahead of time for next program year. Can we send an agenda for the May 10th meeting?
We will put something up when we send out the CSB update, giving you bullet points on what we're covering. And so, yes, you will get information. In this PowerPoint, it was a very brief introduction of the kinds of things that we're going to talk about, and you'll get this PowerPoint. We will put together a much more detailed agenda for that meeting, and we can send that out in the CSB update.
Would you please go through the steps to mark the returning children one more time? I can do that. As I said, it's pretty quick. So first, the bad news, I have already done that, so there's nobody on my enrolled child list. But this you should know as well. You can go to the next year class assignment page, and undo it if you. There we go. Okay, so what I did is I undid what I did before, so I can do it again. So in admin, under the, let me take you to the beginning because I did that very quickly. When you come into the admin side of the site, there is a section called Child Next Year Preparation. So, and the first step in Child Next Year Preparation is assign enrolled children to eligible waitlist or archive list after rollover. So I click on that, I go here. Now I want to point out, in case you're nervous about this, when you do this step, nothing happens to the enrolled children. It's designating what will happen when we roll over to the next program year. But during the current program year, all that's happened is that we've decided where they're going to go and flagged them. But they'll stay enrolled in the classroom. You won't notice anything if you don't have admin access. So what we're doing at this point is just taking the enrolled children. This isn't all the enrolled children. This is the enrolled children who aren't on any other list. So these are enrolled children. We haven't decided what's going to happen to them next year. So it's because I just put the returning kids back here, COPA has decided or guessed that all of them are coming back next year. If I did not want someone to come back next year, the families told me they're not coming back, then I would mark archive, which will move them to the archive, not right away, but on September 3rd. Or I can mark recertify, which will place them back on the waiting list where we will determine eligibility again. So don't overthink it right now. The important piece right now is to get everybody who's coming back with a returning flag so they take up space in your next year count of students. If you don't do this first, what will happen is that you will potentially promise more seats than you have, right, because you will give away a seat that's already occupied. So what you want to do is reduce the number of open seats that you have. Right. And it's not a permanent designation. What happens if someone doesn't return? If you terminate a child who's enrolled, even if you mark them as returning, that will free up their seat in the next year bucket. Right. So it isn't a permanent designation. This is while they're enrolled, they're taking up space. So I'm just going to leave them as returning. I'm going to hit submit. And then it gets to the next page and it asks you, do you want to set returning flags? You do, because that's the reason that we did this. So I'm going to set returning flags, and now they're gone. They've left the enrolled children list. They should be on the returning back to eligible list, and here they are. But I looked under next year class assignment because this page has a flag here that says returning next year. It says it's set. I can check that to make sure. I'm going to look under the child here. Here it says returning next year. So we did that successfully, and they are marked as returning next year. And so when we get the slot matrix up, they should count as taking up space. Correct. And I'll show you what that means on next Wednesday.
So again, thinking about next year, we want to know how many vacancies or real vacant seats based on what you're going to put into the system in your slot matrix. So we know how many 3 to 4-year-old seats there are in community-based programs. So this is the work that you're doing that will answer those questions in COPA, both for your delegate sites, yes, and then it will give us, when we look at that, there's reports that'll give us some total information about what the vacancies are for next year. So it's really important that you do your work so that your numbers are correct, starting back with your recruitment, starting back with thinking about your vacancies and doing the step that he's asking you to do, which is the returning piece.
All right. So I will not be able to attend. I'm going to send another staff in my place.
Linda, let me know which one are you saying. Is it the EDPD meeting or the webinar? And again, whichever one, make sure you are sending somebody who can understand and do something with your information. And that's what's really important for this. But the question to you, is that reference to the webinar, or is that reference to the EDPD meeting on the 10th? The site does not have any ECE program.
ECE.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so right now on the Chicago Early Learning site, we don't have home-based sites and we don't have birth to 3 listed. And that's because for technical reasons, we can only have one application and those seats aren't interchangeable. Going forward, we are looking to the day when we can have different sets of slots in here, so you can have home-based, center-based, birth to 3. But that, on the back end, that practically means we have multiple applications because families don't come to apply for a full day of childcare and want to be offered a home-based slot, so they have to be kept separate. So right now we only have the one application, which is why it's focused on the one population. We will have more going forward. Will the income guidelines be adjusted in COPA to accept families that qualify for PI and PFA for the 2018-2019 program year? So the income guidelines in there right now, it's based on a multiple of the federal poverty guidelines, which change in January. So it's going to be where it is for right now. Now there are some difficulties in some cases with enrolling specific populations of children, which I think I fixed. Carolyn, I think I saw your email from yesterday. The issue that comes up with changing the point system is that it has to be done after 4 p.m. because of the number of users we have on the site. So I did that last night. You should try that again and see if it works. We didn't have a program model in for home visiting for PI, I think it was, so that they were being blocked. But I did that. Now, this is different program model, different funding sources line up with different eligibility cutoff points. And if we don't have specific points in, then it defaults to the global setting, which is set at federal poverty. So try that again and let me know. I keep telling people to send me an email if you don't know, even though it's up here. There it is. My email is craig.zemke@cityofchicago.org. So if there's something wrong with the site that you want addressed, drop me a line and I'll look at it. That would be me. Yes. Okay. We have other partner sites with no other funding stream, but their childcare and our Head Start. If they have a childcare only classroom, can they enter their classroom kids in the system for the online application? You have some interesting questions. Again, I think you should drop me a line separately. You can. The tricky piece is you want to make sure that you don't put sites as having that capacity online if you also don't put the children in. You can do that. You can either make that correct by putting the children in and marking them as returning, or you can just reduce the total number of slots. That's what I want to go over with next week. The point is you guys will do a little bit of math to make sure that you're not offering slots that are already occupied. And on the other hand, you don't want to put too few slots in and have children turned away or waitlisted when you can actually take them.
Correct.
If a market child is returning or recertified because I'm going from a toddler to a Head Start, will the child be counted in the matrix? That's something we'll have to get back to you on, and again, we'll talk to you next week. The matrix has an age range set up. So right now, if you do that, because that's looking at children aged 3 to 5. They would not be counted, and they would not be counted because the system probably regards that child as a 2-year-old right now. Now, if we get that corrected, which was something that we've talked to COPA about already, we actually have a call with them in about half an hour, and that's one of the things we'll check on. Then they will count, because we need to make sure that the system is looking at what age they will be next year rather than what age they are now. So it should count them, because a child that you're marking as recertified should be a 3-year-old next year, and a 3-year-old should be counted. It didn't do that when I beta tested them yesterday. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So just so you know, the other thing that is going on while we're doing all of this is Craig and others are working with COPA to make those kinds of adjustments so that the things that you need to do actually work in the system. And so to his point, he's going to be on a call still trying to get some of that work done so that it will have ease of access for you. When you have your children that are coming from one funding stream, meaning early Head Start, for example, to Head Start, you want to be able to document in this system that they're returning, and that takes up one of your 3-year-old slots, for example. But you've got to be able to do that in COPA to make it work. So he's working on it.
Okay. So it says families do not bring proof of income, birth, and address information in schools owing to the resource centers. Is this correct? We're a Catholic school. Okay. Technically, the way that this system works out, Catholic schools with the Archdiocese, as well as charter schools that don't have their own lottery system, are being counted as CBOs, meaning that you've got to follow the site's eligibility system. So however that worked for children who are coming in this year will still be our eligibility system. So I believe they're going to come in to your site. We'll get back to you on that if that's not the case. Okay. We have early Head Start for 2-year-olds. How can we request PI funding?
Those are going to be questions we'll come up with later. We're not talking about funding at this point. One of the things we're trying to do is get a handle on enrollment and thinking about next program year. And that's why we're, excited about this launch happening, or the early bird, so that we can begin to look at 3 to 5, and then we're going to be working with you to look at your 0 to 3 as well, because we need to get a handle on next program year across all funding models. And so there will be conversations that we'll be having as far as new and replacing funding and doing all the other things. Some of that's going to be talked about at the EDPD meeting, because we know that there are questions about it. But in this conversation right now, it really is about the 3 to 5 and the early bird for the application that's going to open April 30th. So more to come. Stay tuned, be at the EDPD meeting, and also follow information that's coming up on the CSD updates as well.
Okay. Okay, I think that does it for questions.
So we wanted to be here right now to go over the information, making sure that you knew that on Monday, April 30th, that early bird is opening, so parents can go in and start applying and putting their applications in for program year 18-19. As we said earlier, those applications won't move outside of that system until May 18th. Between May 18th and Monday, we're going to be working with you through webinars, through drop-in clinics, to make sure that you have your system set up to receive applications. What we've heard, for example, is I didn't get any applications in my system. Some of that may very well have been that your matrix that you set up was so restrictive that it didn't allow for the families that you would have wanted to enroll to even apply to your sites. And so we're trying to work with you to make sure those kinds of things don't occur this year. But again, we need the right people at the table when we're doing it, with admin access, for example, understanding your funding streams, understanding your returning numbers, and all of the work that it implies. And so that's why we're here with you today, is to talk about it, get you thinking about it, getting you starting on your recruitment, because you need to be getting the word out about this as well, that we're all out there now. Early bird is opening April 30th. We're now in the process of getting ready for that fall of 18-19 right now, but it takes a lot of work on your side, and we wanted to give you some updates. We wanted to start you thinking about what you needed to do, give you show what Craig has done, some of the steps that you need to follow, but then making sure that you understand that we're here for you. We know you're going to have questions. Craig can answer questions specific to the matrix. Please don't email me, I can't help you. But we're here for you. We want to help guide you through this process and make this work for you on your end. And we want you to make sure that you're doing what you need to do on your side as well, which is informing your staff. Your staff are the ones who are at the front door when parents are coming in with questions. Your family support staff are working with those parents. Please keep them engaged in the conversation as we go through this, because what we don't want to happen is parents walk in and nobody knows. So right now, make sure you get something out to your staff that the early bird is happening Monday, April 30th, and parents are going to be primed and ready to start getting their applications into that system for next year. Applications won't move, gives you some time to do your work, and we're going to work this through with you, talking about it at the EDPD meeting, of course, through clinics, through calls and emails that I'm sure you're going to send to Craig. But just remember, we're here for you. Another question just came up.
Will there be an increase in allocated slots, or are we to use this year's?
Thank you for that question. Yes, you are to use your current year. When you're doing your slot allocations, your slot matrix, the data that you're going to use for that is your current allocations within your funding streams. If you've got PSA or if you've got Head Start, it's within those current year. There's no increase. What we're asking you to do is use those numbers for this process. Thanks for that question.
Okay.
So we're going to wait a minute, see if any other questions come through. We thank you for joining us today. We hope we've been able to give you some information that's going to be helpful. The document that we just did will be available for you, meaning the PowerPoint. We have another document that we're going to send back out that includes the dates that Craig went over before, which is about the webinar and also the dates for the clinics. And so we're going to communicate all the way through this process.
Okay. I've got one more question here. Some staff members do not have COPA access yet. How do they register for COPA? So there's two questions there, or there's two solutions to that depending on what the status is. If you are an admin user at your site, you can actually put them in. Go to admin and then hit add user. If no one at your site has COPA access, then you should send me an email. We will need certain information before somebody goes in: job title, email address, phone number, things like that. And we'll probably have to have a conversation about what kind of access a person needs. So let me know. And what is your email again? It's up here at the top. It is craig.zemke@cityofchicago.org. You can see if I do this, it shows up there for a second. There you go. So I know I'll be hearing from some of you soon. I know I've heard from some of you already. And it will be in there when I go back to my desk.
There you go. So please, you keep communicating from your end. If you have questions, we're going to keep coming up with different systems of communicating with you through this process. What we're saying to you is we're hoping for a fully enrolled program year 18-19 across all sites in the city of Chicago. But what that means is that we've worked with parents across the city, getting them access to this system, making sure that they can move from application to enrolled, and that they're there first day of program ready to learn. That's what we're all wanting. That's what parents want as well. So we're going to be working together to get this done. We want to make sure that everybody is as excited about this as we are here at DFSS, because what that means for us is you're starting right now on your recruitment plans for next year. You're thinking about your slot allocations and how many children are returning and how many vacant slots that you have. That information helps us. That information helps you. That information helps the city in its planning. So thank you, all of you, for all of the work and everything that you're doing. We look forward to seeing you at the EDPD meeting on the 10th. But we also expect and want to see you at the webinar that Craig's going to do on Wednesday. And again, those drop-in clinics are going to be here because we do want people to get that slot matrix together and get it right so you can receive applications. If it does not, if you don't, for example, put it in correctly and you're too restrictive, parents will have applied. They will have said they were interested in your site, but your slot matrix won't open itself up to allow them to be an applicant for you. So you really got to get that system right for you, for your families that you want to serve. We understand there's many more questions about it. We understand that you need help with it, and we're here for you. So again, thanks for joining the webinar today. We're going to be here. We're not going anywhere. We are all in this together, making this a great season of application and enrollment for our parents in the city of Chicago. So stay tuned, more to come. Thanks again, everyone.